Hello and welcome to another edition of Talking Devils, number one independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host today, taking over from Wayne, who is going to be on the end of my questions today rather than the other way around. So this will be fun. Um, as always, we're joined by Manchester United legend and England international Paul Parker. Paul, how are you doing on this pretty fresh day?
I'm fine, and it's fresh there in Ireland. It's close to it here because there's a little bit of frost on the windscreen at this moment in time. So yeah, similar weather.
Yeah, all good, all good. Um, I'm also joined, as I said earlier on, by our host from previous years, Mr. Wayne Barton. Um, Wayne, how was your morning started off? Yeah, after that abysmal performance the weekend.
Yeah, it's not been a good few days, has it? You say it's fresh. I heard this morning that it's snowing in Sheffield, and my relatives are over, and they're keeping up with the weather like 50 miles away, as if like they're in a foreign climate. And yeah, it's snowing. I'm like, well, it's not snowing here. Get to work. They're helping with the painting and decorating in the new house. So yeah.
I thought you were going to come on today with your workman's hat, but obviously we don't have that today. For anyone who doesn't
Um,
know, Wayne's been doing
no.
a bit of DIY throughout the week, and I've been getting some nice pictures sent over. It's been kind of fun watching them doing some manual labor for once. So, anyway, let's jump right into it. We start on a bit of a somber subject, which is the death of Paddy Barclay, absolutely phenomenal football writer who passed away at the end of the week of last week. Wayne, I've worked on a couple of podcasts with Paddy myself. I'm not too familiar with him, but my time spent with him on those couple of podcasts was eye opening, to be honest. An absolute wealth of knowledge, and just such a really, really, really down to earth and nice guy, and a very humble guy. Wayne, you spent a lot of the past, 4, 5, 6 years with Paddy. You call him one of your inspirations. The reason why you got into this work. Uh, um, I know it's a very sore subject with you right now, but you know the floor is yours. To just give us like some kind of background on Paddy and your work with him.
Yeah. Obviously, it was a tremendous shock last week. I feel strange, like having ownership over like an amount of grief when I know he's got family and friends who are affected. They've known him for a lot longer than what I have, and like you read a lot of the tributes that have been made to him over the years. I mean, Paul will have had many more, dealings with him earlier in life as well. When I was reading, was getting into sports, reading the sports pages, he was always the one that stood out in terms of like intelligence and analysis. As you say, I've been lucky enough to know him and work with him for the last few years, and he's been good enough to work on our podcast quite often. And he's just honestly, I've not really processed it at the moment. It's still a massive shock. It's, even talking about it now is quite difficult, to be honest. But we can't not talk about him. He was the greatest football writer of all time, without question. He was unbelievable, and like I said, he was a really nice guy as well. Away from football, really caring guy, really good friend. The last time I was doing any work with him was a couple of weeks ago, and he's doing the narration for the Lost Tapes podcast I've been doing, and I called him after the recording just to see how he was getting on, and he seemed all right. And he joked that he was getting more like Larry David by the day, and he was making some complaints about like someone in a cafe had been talking too loudly or something, and he was turning into Larry David. It was just there's so many things to talk about with Paddy. We've got to talk about football, joy of joys, but yeah, it's just my thoughts go out to his family and friends who, it's just tragic.
I mean, they say that the most valuable thing anyone can give somebody is their time. And reading over the weekends, that's the one thing that stuck out the most from people that were giving their condolences was how much time Paddy would give the people. So yeah, I know it's a tough time for you now, mate. But may he rest in peace, and our condolences go to you and to all his family and friends. So yeah, pretty devastating news at the end of the week. Let's move on to Manchester United the weekend. Manchester United, Tottenham 1, Manchester United 0. Same old, same old. I mean, the only thing I probably could say about the game is we probably played a little bit better. We may have got something out of that game if our finishing had been a little better. But it's the same every week we talk about this. We can't put away chances. We can't seem to just get in behind players. We can't seem to motivate this team. We still stuck with that formation, even though our team was decimated with injuries. On a bright note, we had a bench full of academy players. Unfortunately, only one got to come on, but a good sign for the future. Paul, I'm going to start with you. Tottenham 1, Manchester United 0. By all accounts, it wasn't a half bad game, but again, we come away with no points from the game.
I'm going to say they made opportunities. Every shot bar one was straight at the keeper. There was just one in the second half when Garnacho had a shot. Keeper saves to his right at the near post. I thought it wasn't enough. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. I mean, Tottenham started the better side, a lot of possession. United make the first real opportunity at goal was something out of nothing, a counter attack, and again the ball is hit straight at Vicario, and then Tottenham go and score, and then you look at it and you're looking for something positive, and you're just looking, where's a goal going to come from? Is it going to be a team effort? You're kind of saying to yourself, not really. Garnacho looked like he was trying to do it himself on most occasions, trying that usual one of trying to cut inside and shoot. And when he does get the opportunity to go and score, and he decides that he wants to take the plastic off the ball and he skies it. Yeah. All he has to do is just caress it into the corner. It looks great when it hits the net hard, and people might say one of the goals of the season, but people don't care. They just want it roll. If it dribbles over the line, it's a goal. It matters. It makes a difference. And you think, I look at the midfield, and there's not really a lot he could do with that, but we know in front of us, maybe if he was use one of the youngsters, he might have made a difference. But even then, I look at Casemiro, whose passing was very good because he sees passes early. He sees areas where to put the ball, and I don't think he gets read that well by the players around. They seem to react after he passes. But again, when he's in a team like that was out there, he does look slow, and it's because he hasn't ever been quick throughout his career. People have to understand that. But he played in teams that knew his weaknesses, but then worked off of his strengths when he had the ball. Always a 1 and 2 touch player, but he just can't operate in a team like it is. I look at defensively. We can talk about going to a back four, but even then, would it make the team any better? I really don't think so, because the team can't really create on a consistent basis. Front hasn't got one front player, not one front player they can rely on. And then when you're looking in the game, which was a battle of the two poorest big clubs in the country, you're looking for leadership. You're looking at your captain, and he's gone. Well, he is what he is, and there was no leadership. He was as poor as I've ever seen him. He just given the ball away, not even any showing anything about. He was annoyed with himself. He just threw his arms up. The man's just signed a new contract. He should have been out there going around getting in people's faces and asking them questions about why they're not doing this and why. But he doesn't do that because that's not him. But I do find that when he digs United out of trouble, as he did against Rangers, everyone wants to jump on there and commend him and pat him on the back and, give him medals of bravery on his chest. But the Fernandes we saw yesterday as a person leading a football team is not the person, because he was as poor as everyone else and he allowed people around him to be poor because they were looking at him and he can't even lead by example. So United fell away. If they'd have got a point, you would have said, yes, maybe they deserved maybe a point because Spurs weren't great. But when you look at Spurs, their counter-attacking, their energy, their desire to run forward, even though they weren't great, there was definitely more lung-busting runs than what there was from United. No pace, no one to run in behind, front players who are poor decision makers and selfish.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with any of that. The only thing I probably would, have a more in-depth conversation is before I move on to Wayne is, you mentioned moving to a 4-4-2 may not improve anything. I mean, my opinion is I don't think it could make it any worse, Paul. I think after 21 games, it's very obvious. After 10 games, it was very obvious these players can't manage that system. A system that I like. So before I move on to Wayne, because I want to keep on this 4-4-2 because I'm a big fan of it. If you're the coach and after 20 games, 21 games, you're seeing that it's not working with these players, why doesn't he tweak it? Why doesn't he just go, you know what? I'm going to see out the season at 4-4-2. We're going to get a couple of wins and a bit of confidence going. I mean, I know it's a very big hypothetical question, but what would you do in his situation? Would you try and tweak it or just leave it as is and be constantly overrun in midfield, be constantly getting caught on the break? It's just I hate to use this word, but it's embarrassing.
I get where you're coming from, but we've seen so many games when he played maybe a 4-3-3 or whatever. I'll just call it 4 at the back. So you've got a bit of substance and hopefully structure. I've seen them overrunning midfield on numerous occasions. Any team they play against with energy, they will always get overrun, regardless of formations, because formations are only worth talking about if you've got players who actually understand a formation, and then you need players who are willing to work hard to have access to any formation, and the majority of those players haven't got access to any of those formations because they're not interested, to be perfectly honest. You can put a Harry Maguire in a 5, you can put him in a 7 and back. He'll always look awkward. He'll always be caught the wrong side of the ball. He'll always be running back looking like somebody who's just been delivered by, it just fell out of an elephant's belly, because he just looks cumbersome. He looks terrible. The whole thing looks terrible. You're trying to build something in the back, but he's been now obliged to play Harry Maguire in the middle, and that's slow. And our general play is slow. Every time he played, and the ball was moved quickly, and that's come from midfield and generally through Casemiro, one touch pass, just to break forward quicker, they look good. But the moment it started from the back, it was ponderous. Spurs average, Spurs high line. High line means turn them round. You turn them round, because nothing worse than being a defender and facing your own goal. Doesn't matter how quick you are, you're always wary of something that you might slip, something that might touch you, anything, and knock you off balance. Don't turn teams around. Højlund doesn't understand that sometimes when the ball's deep, if you keep running to make runs behind, and then you turn around and you start pointing a finger at your back 4 players or back 3, sooner or later they're going to suss it, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it hoping that you don't get it, because they want to say to you, well, you wasn't there. Put them under pressure, ask the question, because everyone knows United are not going to go in behind. And that's what Tottenham concede every single time. One-on-ones they get caught out with. Someone being booked, someone being sent off because they're the last man. Never tested them. And that's me. So the manager must know that. He must know that. And I'm just going to change it a little bit, the demographics a little bit. You talked earlier about, we talked about the young players on the bench. You know, all those young, and it's great for the club. And it is, because the club, that's history about that coming through. I think, this is my first little dig at the manager, but I thought he was disrespectful to that by not making a change around 70 minutes. Hoyland should have been hooked. Not giving that lad 3 minutes of added time and doing that. I thought it was disrespectful. And it could have been 5 minutes. I thought that would have been, it should have been 70 minutes. Hoyland weren't giving anything. And there was something I was going to say, but I thought I better leave that, what I was going to say about Hoyland, and just to add to the way he was playing. But you might as well have had the young lad there, because you know that he's going to look to come short and spin. Hoyland looks to come short, throws his arms down by his side because he doesn't get the ball. The ball goes in behind, then he runs and he turns, and it's kind of, they should have given the ball to my feet. And the reason why they don't give the ball to his feet is because he hasn't got anything in the bottom, below his knees. He has got no feeling, because nothing ever sticks down there. It doesn't seem as if he can control it. Cynical, but I'll tell you what, I've seen far too many games, and I was a fan of his within his first 14 months. I thought there was something there. I saw everything there, and he's gone backwards. I don't know if he's decided he doesn't want to stop learning, or whether or not he's reached a level. But I tell you what, Atalanta at this moment in time watching, I'm thinking they must be saying, we've got great money here.
Yeah, I mean, he did start off very brightly, but definitely this season and part of last season, he's definitely fallen off a cliff a bit. Wayne, the only bright spot from that game the weekend was it was in London, and you didn't have to drag yourself across Manchester to watch it. How did you view the game yesterday?
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, we're not watching it and coming away and learning anything we didn't already know. Like you guys have already said there, I think there were a couple of things that I was bugging Paul through the game with some messages. The sign of a team that's really low on confidence is even when they do the good things, it looks rubbish. It doesn't look good. There was a moment in the second half, we're 1-0 down. Maguire, and I don't want to, everyone can point the finger at him for the goal that we conceded. You can look at the goalkeeper as well and say it was tremendously poor. I think the first thing is it still feels like it's a team that looks for excuses. So we played a team that have a lot of injuries, but it's like, we've got as many, so that's why we're not going to turn up today. Maguire in the second half, there was a moment where he played a pass from a free kick. We're 1-0 down, we're chasing the game, and the normal thing is you just roll the pass and get on with it. But what he did was he floated it with his left foot. So, it was an accurate pass, but he did it. It was an accurate thing. We got turned over pretty quickly. I just think like it's little moments in games like that where you don't have the urgency, where you just want to mess about. He's not a left-footed player. He's a right-footed player. Put the ball down, move it quickly, and get on with it. Instead, he just floats this aimless pass across things. Doesn't do anything to advance the play. Doesn't put the players in a better position. It's not thought with any great plan there. It's just like, this will feel good to execute it. The other thing is the point that Paul made about Casemiro. One of the worst things of punditry that I can remember for the last 5 years is when Carragher went on. Carragher said he's finished as a footballer. He came out and actually said that about a year ago. I thought it was disgraceful at the time, actually. But when a player's in poor form, you can't really sort of like defend them that much. But you can't say that didn't have an impact on the sort of general perception of whether or not he should play. So then he's been put out to pasture. I mean, we're talking about a player who's won 5 Champions League medals, and like Paul said it, and we've said this on this podcast so many times, that the value of a player is A, what he brings to the team in his own ability, and B, how that team complements him and works around him. The qualities that Casemiro's got. He's still one of the best passers in the league. He's got loads of qualities about him. Yeah, pace is not one of his best qualities, and if you leave him exposed, he can look, the tackles can look desperate. But I remember the first few weeks when he did sign, or there was that little spell when Ten Hag refused to put him in for a bit, but then he went in and he would go into these lunging, sliding tackles, and he always got the ball. His timing was impeccable, because if you put a decent midfielder around him, he'll be the best midfielder in there and he'll shine. So this sort of narrative that he's finished, which was started by Carragher and amplified by everyone else, I just think is disgraceful. To talk about a professional footballer like that is one thing. The other thing is, like what you guys were talking about, was the changing up. Any United manager, every single United manager, bar this one, from the evidence that we've seen before, even Mourinho did it to an extent. Maybe Mourinho, Van Gaal less so, but Ten Hag did it. Ollie did it. If United are losing a game, they throw on players with 10 minutes to go, and you don't know what system they're playing. The point is, it's gambling. The players are all over the place. You create a chaos theory. The opposition buys into it, and United benefit from that. There's no benefit that is given from just this monotonous same system all the time. It's predictable all the time. You've reduced all the attacking options by sending them all out on loan. So you've got a very threadbare thing. So the inability to change that system, while I can see the value of persisting with it as a starting thing, and say that this is the way that I want to start. If you don't show yourself, the biggest criticism that Wenger got at the end of his reign with Arsenal is that he just refused to budge from his ideals. But the problem with that is that Wenger had 10 years of success behind him. This guy doesn't have that. So you can't invest hope in something when there's no evidence, apart from in Sporting, which isn't it's evidence to get him the job, and he's got the job. It's not evidence to continue the support of that approach. And the final thing, just to say about the kids, which Paul said earlier, just don't bring him on. Just don't bring him on with 2 minutes to go. Don't bring him on, because we're defending set plays. Casemiro's going to be better defending them anyway. We're not in a position where you can have panic in the box. So just don't bring him on. You've got 15 minutes early to make that decision. I'll bring 2 or 3 of them on, like Kone. We saw a lot of good clips from him in the pre-season. So bring a couple of those kids on around 15 minutes to go. Paul and I had this conversation under Solskjaer, and we had it under Ten Hag and under Rangnick about putting the kids in en masse, right? And he said, where you're going to do them more harm than good because it was a toxic environment. This isn't that. It's not a toxic environment. Those players are not good enough, so you can't tell these players that they don't deserve a chance when the evidence that they don't create, they don't score goals, and they can't defend. So, and you've also come out and said that the worst United team of all time. So if you're in that mode and you giving a player that, we're talking about a guy. Momentum in football is so big. And sorry, this is the last point. I know I ramble, but this is the last point I'll make on this. Momentum in football is so big that Chudi Obi's running of goals at the moment is phenomenal. So you want to keep that going. Bringing him into that. I know he's he's great to have had a taste first team action and everything like that, but it's not a real taste. You can remember the time when Ronaldo was not brought, was it? He was taken off again, or not brought on against City when we were losing 6-3. And Ten Hag had said something like, I didn't want to bring him on because I didn't want it to be part of his career. And we all said at the time, well, United needed that. I understood where he was coming from at the time, because he wasn't going to add anything at that point. I think we were at one point we were down 6-1, weren't we, or 6-2. There was no value in bringing him on. There's no value in bringing him on. And look, losing 1-0, you want to bring on a kid who's going to score a goal, but not with 2-3 minutes to go. When you're already defending and you don't have the players to operate a turnover, you're just going to see that game out for the 1-0 like we do all the time. Too much pressure on him in short space of time, and I just think, yeah, if I was like what Paul said, I would have brought on 2 or 3 of them with 15 minutes to go, because there was literally, we were going to lose that game. We were toothless. We might as well have seen what could happen with that. And that's the problem, is that it's just the same old, like I said at the start.
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing. I mean, I don't understand if you're 1-0 down, you bring on a player for his debut with 3 minutes to go. I understand it if you're 3-0 up and you just want to bring him on, and to get his debut, to get him to get that feel good factor being on the pitch. But it absolutely made no sense to me bringing him on. It was. I felt really bad for the kid. He was coming into a really bad environment. As Paul said earlier on, if you're going to make the change, make it on 70. Give him a run out. I think what I have seen anyway down the years is when we do play a lot of these kids from the academy, when they do make their debut, there's zero pressure on them, and that hasn't changed over the decades. They just come on and there is no expectation from them, because we don't know a hell of a lot about them, and they seem to play with a lot more freedom. The 3 minutes thing was embarrassing. And then, we move on to the press conference, which, I used to think David Moyes was the worst person to ever stick in front of a microphone when talking about Manchester United. But this guy is up there with him. Every time he gets in front of a microphone, he just, the things he says baffle me. He just makes excuses after excuses after excuses. I mean, to come out, as we all know, and say this is the worst Manchester United team ever, and then week after week after week, he tells us the most blatantly obvious things, but yet nothing changes. He tells us how bad they are, how they want to play well for the fans, but there's never once a question about the formation and why he's sticking with it. And that completely baffles me. His persistence with Onana, and I know yesterday he had to play him, but there's just more evidence yesterday that this guy is not even a championship goalkeeper. And I don't want to be disrespectful to championship goalkeepers. He is so bad. The fact we can't see this is mind-blowing. And to go back to Paul's comment about Harry Maguire, it's nails down a chalkboard. Every time the ball goes to him, it seems like we're in a matrix and everything just stops. Everything moves then in slow motion for the next 10, 15 seconds. It's just insane. So I know Paul's got to head off in a little bit. Myself and Wayne will more than likely stay on, because I think we want to get through a lot more. But Paul, I wanted to ask you this. Over the past couple of weeks, we've seen reports of how bad the financial situation is at Manchester United. Every day there's a different story that comes out of how bad it is. That leads us all to believe, well, we know that Manchester United won't have a hell of a lot of money to spend for the next summer, or even the next 2 or 3 summers. If Amaran's going to stick with this system, he's going to have to get in his own players. But if he's being held back by the fact that financially we can't bring in players that will fit this system, what do we do as a club then? Because are we gonna just persist for the next 2 or 3 years until we get some of the players in that he wants? What do we do at this point? We're at a crossroads right now, and it sounds mad because we only brought this guy in November, but we've 13 points, I think, from 14 games. That's mind blowing.
Yeah, I would look at it. Sorry, Dave. I would look at it for him now. Because no one can blame him. He's walked into this, and I wonder, has there been a few white lies said to him regarding the situation now? And he's just now kind of not saying, he's not going to come out and say, I was promised this and promised that. He's not going to go and do that. It's not the line to go down. But if self-preservation comes to my mind, start looking at the youngsters, and he will be given, the rope will be let out a little bit with people if he starts giving the younger players. And if he's got it's in his mind, this system, then nothing better than younger heads who are going to take it in and going to want to prove a point. And what they might fail in positional sense, in the fact of making those decisions, they will give the team more energy. They will give predominantly the mass Man United fans. I can't speak on behalf of maybe a lot of the tourists, really. They understand it. But the Manchester United fans will jump on the back of that, and they will make a little bit more noise because of the fact that there's young players out there, and they will move heaven and earth to help these young players through. And that might be they will take it on, because I like to believe that, and you can tell me here, by the way, Dave, Wayne, are the teams below playing free at the back?
I don't believe so. I think one of the fewer teams that are playing that. There's only I don't believe so. There's only
that doesn't smell right to me. That says to me, well, what's the point in having a director of football unless he's instructing? Because we've now got this new manager. The first day he's come in, he should have been saying to every single coach of every team going from behind the first team, this is what you've got to play now. This is the way we want to encourage our players to play. So we're going to get our centre halves, and maybe there might be a midfield player who might be able to step back in there and help that. We're going to play free at the back. This is the system we're going to play. And if that's not been implemented right the way through the cards, then there's a problem. There's a problem to start with. Why hasn't someone taken that on board to do that? Why hasn't Mr. Bike Freak, Belsford, shouted the odds out and said that goes down the line if it hasn't? So there's a problem if that hasn't been done. But he's got to start using young players, because if he's going to keep using tried and tested older players who have lost their drive and they're kind of going, here we go again, and that's a problem. And if it doesn't kick off right, if United don't score the first goal, then you need them to score the first goal. And the longer it's staying 0-0, things aren't bad. But the moment they go behind, everybody just goes, bang, it's gone. That's it. They don't see United scoring a goal. Where before, United go 1-0 down, people don't leave the stadium because they believe there's going to be a goal. Yeah. I know that we're talking at least 10, 11 years ago. And I'm saying that, I would have said that under Ollie. There would have been that there, because Ollie still implemented that kind of, never say never. It was still there. And even on poorer games of Ollie, and I look at the criticism that Ollie got now, and honestly, it's just kind of just made me think, wow. But you still sat there and you was kind of on your edge of your seat, because straight away you still had runners and riders. And there was always that, you had players who were still going behind. You still had that bit of an edge, excitement. And that's not there anymore. Now it's a ponder. And that's the difference now. Even if, you go back to Ollie's time, that was the best period since Sir Alex retired. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. That was an exciting period. It wasn't great Manchester United, and it was still then living off of what Sir Alex was doing. And Ollie got caught up with, it still wasn't Sir Alex. It wasn't this. And if you could get someone to bring back what Ollie was doing then, this side now would be sitting Champions League. That's for me how much football has gone backwards from that time in the way of playing. Because Ollie had this way of playing against sides who wanted, I'm not going to use that word, I'm going to use the words closing down, because that's football. Because Manchester United are not a basketball team, so I don't use that other word. And he would just go behind, turn them round, because they don't want to do that from great big long distances. And that was it. He totally killed it. But now everyone is still trying to do it, and Manchester United is still trying to do it, and you can't do it unless you've got an outlet of pace. There's no pace. So you have to be 100% sure that you can play this. Otherwise, you've got big trouble. And if you lose the ball, there's no one dogged enough in there to go and get it back. So at the moment, they're absolutely fighting against the wind at the moment, Manchester United. And it's great, the position they're in at the moment, points-wise, thank God. But I tell you what, I'm wondering at this moment where 3 points are going to come from.
Don't disagree with any of that. I think we did play our best football under Ollie at times. We really did. It was more exciting. It was free flowing, and yes, you are right. It was everyone stayed until the last minute. Paul, I know you got to head off in 4 minutes, and sorry for bombarding you with the questions.
No, it's fine. I was getting caught up in it a little bit too much.
You've said this numerous times in the past, whether on the podcast or off air, where you've said that young players coming into the dressing room, the older players are would take that up as a challenge, to say who are these little whippersnappers coming in here thinking that they're going to take my place. Our bench was full of youngsters yesterday. I think I know the answer to this. But do you think that the players that were, obviously players that are out injured, but even if you're out injured, it should send a warning shot to you that, hey, there's people coming up the back here that could take your place. Do you think that's what's in the thoughts of some of these players that are completely underperforming for the past year, that they're thinking, oh, no, now there's someone else coming in?
See, I'm going to say to you, Dave, I think that's a leading question, because I think you know me well enough to know that I'm going to bite on that and say, I don't think these players care. I really don't think they care. I would, if it was me, I'd be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed if I was just going to accept it and go, oh, I mean, my one with Gary got there on a default, on the fact of my injury. I and then when I come back, I couldn't get myself going to get anywhere near to the levels where he was in fitness and everything else with it. The team were playing great, but I still didn't enjoy it. It bothered me. I felt like, everyone's saying how well Gary's got the green-eyed monster comes out inside.
Yeah. And that's what you want, you didn't give up.
Of course you want it. And they're never going to admit to it, but that's what you want. I don't think this lot care. And that's why I really wanted him, because I was working yesterday doing the game. And I was saying that I wanted him to go and do that, because I wanted it then, because I wanted it to go and add something. Even mentioned about Spurs in their Europa League game. They made substitutions that changed the game for him against Effenberg. Yeah. They brought in 3 young kids, changed the game for him. And I don't know if it was going to do the same, but what it does for the manager, those fans there, the ones who had travelled in, the ones, that away support, everyone knows is the best in the country. It would have given them an even bigger lift. They would have walked away, losing maybe 1-0, but they would have gone with the manager. They would have been giving him a thumbs up, because he's gone, that's what I'm going to go and do. And that's what I was waiting for. 65 minutes on, I was saying in the commentary, he has to do that just to make a point. And I said as well, he's made points by taking off one of the centre forwards, which way it works out, Xerxes or Hoyland. He keeps doing that. He takes off the centre half, keeps doing that, and yet he doesn't go and do anything this time around. Is it because of not trusting them and whatever? In a certain way, there is that little element of, am I right about this? Am I going to make the right decision? Because you don't want to ruin a kid's career. But then I think his mind, and then normally in the other mind, but I don't want to lose a game. Well, you're losing the game. Yeah. You're not going to affect the kid's career 9 times out of 10, because he ain't going to believe it. He knows that he gets on that field, the adulation he's going to get after the game and from his friends and family is going to make him or break him. He's going to be on such a high, and he never gave that opportunity. So I feel let down by him that he hasn't done that. He hasn't read enough books, seen enough films to understand what it could have done for his time at Manchester United if he had made that decision to put them on in that game. It was an absolutely perfect situation to go and do it, because none of them would have done him an injustice. They would have done him a massive favour, and maybe not so much to win the game, but on the fact of what people saw within that man. They would have said, he's got Manchester United. And it's old school, but I think that makes such a difference if the main fans understand that you get the football club. Yeah. And to be honest, in my 5 years there as a player, did I get it? Nowhere near as much as I got it after going there, from working there with MUTV and from doing stuff. You get it then, it grows into you as you go on. You might not get it as a player straight away, but you get it after when people start talking to you, being an ex-Manchester United player. But him being in that role as a manager, he should have been seeing bits about Sir Alex and read bits of what other managers have said at United when they've been there, and he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And I shouldn't be the only one talking about it. Others, it will come out somewhere along the line. I'm sure Gary Ten Hats will come out and say something about it, and everyone will go, "Wow, Gary said this and Gary said that." I'm just saying it now.
No, I mean it was a massively missed opportunity, in my opinion. I've yet to see in all the years I'm following Manchester United when we brought on an academy player, a player from the U teams, and we've yet to see one that doesn't go out there and wouldn't run through a brick wall for you. You know, gives it a bit of energy. Gets, like you said, gets the away fans going. 70 minutes, bring on a couple of them. I'm not in this opinion that they're not ready. I'm sorry, they've been at Manchester United. They are ready. Now, Paul, I appreciate your time this week. I know you got to jump. As always, thanks for your time. Myself and Wayne.
I will just say, sorry, I will say just quickly before I go, because I kind of again took the conversation away, because we did talk initially about the people who are running the football. It does concern me. I do believe that, again, given when I look at the state what's happened of this country, I think there's been a little bit of sales pitch put in there initially just to get things on the back. And I do worry what's going to happen next. I worry about all those people who are being sacrificed for yesterday, for those people getting what they're getting, you know, and those people have mostly come away, a lot of them, with a little bit of a bitter tongue when that club's been their lives and their families' lives. And it does worry me that people can come along and do that to people. They're not there with no pictures of them outside the ground or anything. They're the ones who work the foundation. They're the ones who kind of, everything comes up from them to keep everything solid. And he's ruining it. He's ruining it at this moment in time. And I know he's from Failsworth, but at this moment in time, he's failing. It's as simple as that. And he's failing through popularity. And it ain't going to affect him. He ain't bothered. Just the way these people are brought up. But somewhere along the line, he's alienating himself within good family and friends because of what he's doing, and he's going to have to live with that.
I don't disagree. We definitely should dig a little bit deeper into that in one of the future podcasts in the next few weeks to talk about, you know, his how we, you know, the opinion of him when he walked in the door versus the opinion of him like here we are. In February of 2025, I know there's definitely a vast difference of opinion from when he initially came in to now. So, Paul, like I said, as always, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. I hope you have a great week.
Okay, then. Cheers. Same to you both. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
So, Wayne, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and as always, we appreciate Paul coming on. I know he's a busy guy, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because you know you're so knee deep in this subject, you know, every day is the academy. You know, I was excited to see all those players on the bench yesterday. I really was. Paul talked about a missed opportunity. I think I mentioned missed opportunity, but Paul kind of said the same thing, that, you know, 70 minutes, maybe 65 minutes. It wasn't getting any worse. It was an ideal opportunity to bring, you know, a couple of these guys on. And like I said, anytime I've ever seen a player make his debut, it's like your first time at Disneyland, right? You're just so hyped, you know, the adrenaline takes over. You're going to make silly mistakes because you're so hyped up, but that's what the experienced players are there for, to calm you down. Massively missed opportunity yesterday, in my opinion, to blood a few of these players out there. Who knows what could happen? You know what? I'd rather lose 2 or 3-0 trying to get these guys into a game than 1-0. We're still going to get, you know, it's still 3 points down. Just want to get your view on this. I know you know a lot more about these players than most. I was happy to see him come on but then 3 minutes. To me, 3 minutes actually gives the debutant a disadvantage, because he wants to do something, okay? And he gets on and he doesn't get an opportunity to do anything. Now it's a punch in the gut. now in his head, he's thinking he's deflated. Okay. Now, I don't want to speak. For me, I think, I believe he's deflated. I do. I think this morning or last night, whenever I heard back to Manchester, he was probably thinking to himself, what if? I don't know. I'm trying to put into words how annoyed I feel. And I think we should have brought that kid on. He's scoring goals for fun, in the academy and the reserves, or not the reserves, the 21s or the 18s, whichever he's playing the most in at the moment. I think it's the 18s. His confidence is sky high. You're bringing him on against a team that, as Paul said, don't like people running at them. And he brings him on for 3 minutes. And it makes no sense whatsoever. So, sorry I went into my long Wayne question, but I'm on the left side of my screen, so I'm allowed to do that. Missed opportunity or good vibes for them just being involved?
No, like I said earlier, I'm with you guys on that. It's a difficult thing now. Way back when I used to kick a ball around, I was called up for the school team and put on the bench. But I played local football and I never got picked in the school team because I was bullied quite a lot. So it just didn't work out. But they'd seen me playing PE, so I got called into like, why is Wayne not in the school team? So they put me on the bench and I came on for like maybe the last 5 minutes of a game, and the kids didn't pass to me. Do you know what I mean? And I was just running around aimlessly doing nothing. But I never came off that thinking, oh, I didn't get a chance to show myself, because I just felt like it just didn't happen because there wasn't enough time, and I didn't get a kick of the ball. I don't think he'll be deflated. Not that I'm comparing it to playing for Manchester United, but the sort of mental resilience of a kid to come on and just go, all right, well, so I was probably not much younger than Obi, but he came on and he didn't get a touch, and I think everyone will be saying the same thing to him. The way that we've just explained it. That he didn't get a chance and that the ball wasn't in an attacking area while you're on the pitch. I just didn't understand in that moment why you. Just the substitution itself, I would leave Casemiro on. We're defending set pieces. He's one of the most reliable in that regard. Yeah. So that part didn't make sense either. But yeah, the actual momentum element of bringing on the kids earlier. Now, there are two different things to look at with kids coming into the side. The first is the temperament to make it at that level. Some players you can tell. Obi looks like that, like the same way that Kobe did when he was breaking through. You just know that they will have the temperament to handle playing at that level. Even Garnacho, there was a question over the temperament, and that's probably still in question now. But he's got the talent to be there. Now, the consequential point is, are the players who are playing good enough to play, have they earned their place? And is there talent enough in that environment to break through with the temperament to come into a struggling side? All of these like hot potatoes to answer for a manager are quite difficult questions, really, because like Paul said, there's this element of bringing them in, and they just, if they don't take to it, and if the results still turn out to be bad, and you start holding the kids accountable, you do a lot of damage to them. But like I said earlier, I don't think that this is a toxic environment. It's a difficult environment. It's a very difficult environment for them. But very much like the same way, you remember the first wave of the kids who came through under Fergie, which was like Lee Martin, Lee Sharp, Tony Gill, Russell Beardsmore, Giuliano Majorana. All these kids came through. Some of them weren't for the long term, but some of them did make an impact. But that scenario already happened under Van Gaal. We saw with McNair, Blackett, who came into playing defence, both with Jackson, who had a decent run. He was sent out. Rashford, obviously, Lingard came through in that time and scored a win in an FA Cup final. So I've already had that Lee Martin early fledglings moment of these kids who probably aren't going to be good enough for the long term, but can provide the boost in the short term. Now, there's nothing wrong with having that again. It just shows you how difficult this cycle has been, that we've had to go to a reset yet again, when I've already gone on record and saying that I don't feel like it was necessary to be so implosive with a couple of these transitional periods. But here we are. And I just return to what I said earlier. You've got to give them a proper chance to impress, like in the rhythm of the game, not just like this wasn't. People have a misnomer about what happened with Solskjaer in '99. They think he came on in the 89th minute. He came on like I think it was 81 minutes, which is still 10 minutes to get warmed into the game. Federico Makeda didn't come on in the 85th minute. He came like an hour, 70 minutes. He was warming into the game, getting ready for that moment.
Yeah.
It's not always a case of you score with your first touch. It doesn't happen like that. There's like a few minutes of warming up to get into the sort of rhythm of the game. The crowd gets behind you. It's a different kind of energy. There was that part where you can say that, well, United were building to something and it looked like they were doing something. But in that case, just don't make the subs at all. If you're going to be bold enough to do it, make the 2 or 3 subs on the 70th to 75th minute. Give those players a strong enough chance to respond to the rhythm of the game, but also strike that unknown element in the opposition. Because if you're playing with freedom, they're not familiar with you. That's your best chance to make an impression. Fortunately for Obe, I don't think that this is like I think he can play another game. Like, let's say if he gives him 20 minutes at Everton next week, he can do that. And I don't feel like yesterday hurt him. I just don't think it benefited him. And you have very few opportunities when you're blooding kids in, right? You have very few opportunities to strike while the iron's hot and to catch everyone off guard. That was an opportunity missed because, and I get it. It's not an easy thing to sort of like categorize, and easy for us on the sidelines to say, should have done this, you should have done that. Very difficult balancing act between wanting to trust in the faith of the conviction of your opinion, be utilizing a skill. Now that's a skill that a skill set that he's inherited, a talent of the club in terms of like their personality. That's an actual weapon that you've got to call upon that you didn't do anything to create. It's there. Yeah. You can harness that, but you have to be in tune with it. And Paul said it earlier, if he brings those kids on with 20 minutes to go, regardless of what happens at the end, you go, yeah, he gets what United are about, but doing it with 2 minutes to go, I think he's thought of the reputation of United. I thought, well, you just bring a kid on and they might invoke panic and do something in the last minute. It just didn't seem like a sensible situation. We can talk about 70 minutes, but I even go back, like I said earlier, to just bringing him on for Casemiro when we were defending. I actually probably put us more at risk of conceding another for no reason. And we had no real chance of breaking out and scoring. So, I would have brought on Kone. I would have brought on Obe with 15 minutes to go and see what that could have done. Like I said, I think like you've still got the benefit of that unknown quantity to call upon next time, but you can only have that so many times. If you drip feeding him in 5 minutes, it's going to hurt his confidence. It's going to make him. He's going to already add the perception that he doesn't contribute, which is unfair. And opponents aren't going to be worried about him when they are worried about him because of the reputation that he's got. And I just think you don't have an infinite opportunity to call upon that resource. It's very, very, it calls upon your skill as a manager and you want to know that a manager's got, I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do at all, but I just think when you watch it and we sit and analyze it and the result of that, I think that's one consequence that we get afterwards. We go, all right, he might have just had his finger off the pulse with that one, and we hope that he makes a better choice next time. I don't think it was terminal this time around. I just think you want to see better judgment from him.
I mean, we're always well, I won't say we're quick to do this, but as supporters, within a couple of months, 2 to 3 months, you can see when a player is just not going to make it. Okay, maybe give him 6 months, and that's been. You just know he's not going to make it. You just know that he's not the one. He's not the player. Why don't we have that same attitude towards a manager? Why can't we just admit, in my honest opinion, we got it wrong with this guy? And like I said, and I passed this comment yesterday on Twitter, is that very good coach, wrong club. That's the way I feel. Because he doesn't have, and someone, I think Ben had mentioned it earlier on, we have no plan B. And a coach of his caliber should have a plan B. And that plan B is glaringly obvious. We have to revert back to a 4-4-2. We're not going to win every game, but we're losing every game. We really are. We're just getting humiliated and embarrassed. And then he goes into the press conference and he tells us that we're getting humiliated and embarrassed and that he doesn't want to face the fans and, it's embarrassing at this time. And, well, mate, you're the one that's in charge of all this. But then the following week, you go out and do the exact same thing and we get the exact same results. And every now and then there'll be a glimmer of hope, the Arsenal in the cup, City away. And then we get our ass handed to us by Bournemouth and Brighton. I mean, we've got to really... This is in my, 40-odd years of following United. We look at games, and this may be arrogance, and we go, yep. Ooh, tough one. That's their cup final. Let's go. I'm looking at the next 3 or 4 games and thinking, we're not going to get anything. Nothing. I think we'll get 0 at Everton. I think Arsenal will beat us. I think this is damning, but I believe that we'll get a point from Ipswich. That's it. I really believe that. And I think Fulham will knock us out of the cup. We are so bad. We are so poor. And we have a lot of very good players. We really do. Decent players. And this is the baffling part about for me. I will die on this hill. Our players individually are far better than most of the teams in the league, and I'll argue that with anyone. Do they have the passion like Aston Villa? No, they don't. But we have better players. They may have individually 1 or 2 players that are good, but we have better players. I don't care what anyone says. We do. So if we have better players, and that's my honest opinion, why aren't we higher up the table? And the reality is, it's because we got this wrong with this manager. And we have to admit that. We used to laugh at Abramovich when he felt that way. This guy's not good. And he got rid of him. And then he brought in someone else and they won the league. Or he won the Champions League. Unfortunately, football has gone that way. We have to move on from the 20-odd years of Fergie and whatever years of Wenger. All that's gone. It's gone. Manager has 2 to 3 years max. But like a player, a manager can have a 6-month max. And we got it wrong with this guy. And we have to move on. And I know the next question will be, well, who do we bring in? Well, we bring in someone that can look at the players that we currently have and play to their strengths. This guy can't. And I don't see this getting any better. I see it getting worse. Because we can't buy our way out of this problem. We really can't. We just can't. And as Ben's saying there, Ratcliffe won't admit that mistake. I don't think we can afford to admit that mistake. We really can't. So why can't we win? Why can't we say we got it wrong and we need to move on from this guy? 13 points in 14 games.
Yeah.
It's damning. It really is. And it's not as if we've been unlucky. We've literally got our arses handed to us. I mean, we were at the Southampton game. No way that game was 3-1. It should have been 3-1 in the reverse. We were absolutely annihilated that day. Annihilated is a strong word, but we were not the better team by far. They were better than us. And they're getting mugged every week. Why can't we admit we got it wrong?
No, this is the thing, right? There's no evidence to say that we haven't got it wrong. And I'm not, my own things, I don't advocate for change. I mean, there's a couple of comments here to come to Box and saying Moyes. Ben says Conte, and Casey says should have kept Rude in retrospect. I'm probably more in line with that last one. I mean, Conte would, if you look at the reality of the next 2 years.
Sorry to put in, because I want to talk about that Van Nistelrooy comment. I was in charge for 4 games, the most enjoyable 4 games I've had this season. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point, and you're right. And the most that we looked like ourselves as well. Is it a coincidence that the more that we look like ourselves is when we've got a player a manager who's been connected to the club before? I don't think it is a coincidence for that. Was it enough to say it's sustainable to build upon? I mean, you look at like I was just going to say there with that point about Conte, is you've got to imagine the next 24 months being one of austerity for United in the transfer market. So you need to look at a manager who can come in and work with what he's got and improve them, or a caretaker manager, like to sort of steady the ship and do that, because morale and momentum do go a long way. And they're on the floor at the moment. The confidence is on the floor, and it's difficult to turn that around. So you don't know. I mean, you want to hope that confidence turns around under this manager, and we might see a completely different thing. But there's just no evidence of that. You couldn't have someone like Conte coming in because he wouldn't get what he wanted. He'd probably get some players in the first window, but once he realised the seriousness of the situation, by January he'll be kicking off and we'll be in free fall again. So it's difficult to see. I mean, I don't want to sit here and forecast doom and gloom, but it's difficult to see how it improves over the next 18 months because there's just not the financial wiggle room. And I think that the thing that frustrates me as a fan of football is that United have been stung by some of these rules, which I get it. You know, like everyone wants to have a laugh at United. They're the biggest story in town and everything like that. But I think like everyone thinks it's a laugh at United for the rules on the takeovers and the way that United were taken over were not illegal. Do you know what I mean? They were allowed to take over the way that they did. They were allowed to leverage the club in this amount of debt, and that now impacts their capability to operate under PSR rules, which everybody knew, and everyone who implemented these rules knew, because they would have had to have a financial background. They would have known that United would have been incapable of operating like fluently under these rules because of the size of the debt that's on the club and the transfer debt that was alleviated, leveraged again to the club. And yeah, I'm not saying that the club are not accountable for their own mistakes. Of course they are. But when you see other clubs allowed to do what they want and spend what they want, and the loopholes still exist, and they've got the money to fight the rules that mean, even if we can all see what the rules are that are being contravened and how unfair the sporting landscape is, United are still impacted badly by that because of the fact that they just don't have the money to operate until, you know, as much as we want to sit here and say critical things about Ratcliffe and that, you know, the evidence isn't good, until such time either that there's a benevolent owner who comes in and immediately wipes out the debt, or Ratcliffe gets the percentage stake in the club that the takeover trail suggests that he gets. There's no incentive for him to clear any of the debt. There's no incentive for him to alleviate the club in a. Do you know what I'm saying here? We're talking hundreds of millions of pounds of investment. So I understand from a financial point of view where thing, but like Paul was saying earlier, when you made all these difficult decisions, the problem is that the football still goes on and life still goes on. And we've all said this before about Amorim, is that you can't say that it's not a convincing argument that in 18 months worth of time, this isn't likely to improve. You know, that's not an out for this manager. It's not an out for the ownership. So you have to sort of, because like Paul said, like the point that I was just going to say there is that you've still got yesterday's result, and then you look at the decisions that have been taken, and there will be people saying, was it worth it for this over that 18 months? Now they're all preaching that it's going to be difficult and that like in 24 months time it'll be better. There's no guarantee of that, because you have to have conviction in the value of the success of those opinions. And when there's no short term, there's no adaptability, there's no fluidity. The best United managers have been tactically adaptable. You cannot succeed at Manchester, and I'll say this now on record, and I'm not saying this is a criticism of Amorim, because hopefully he'll do something that proves me wrong. You cannot succeed at Manchester United if you're not tactically adaptable. It will not happen. So he needs to be the one who does that. And regardless of this squad of players, it can be 24 players that he oversees a complete transition and gets his own players in, he will still need to be tactically flexible in order to succeed at United. It's just the way that it is. So, yeah, I mean,
he doesn't. He's in the job. Let's say 20 weeks. Okay, they train 5 days a week. It's 100 days he's had them. It's still the same since day one.
Yeah.
And nothing to me, I don't think, and I've said this, I just don't think he's tactically good enough for Manchester United. He'll find a club, I think, that will suit his style of football down to a T. But unfortunately, it's not at Manchester United. And the only reason I want us to go to 4-4-2 is to try something different. When Van Nistelrooy was at the club and we were chasing Amorim, it was a massive thumbs up for me from Ineos because we had that podcast and before that I had said, why don't we just go after somebody that's in a job? You know, we do it with players. Why not do it with managers? They figured that this guy was the guy. Reports at the time where United had already talked to him in the summer. So me, it gave a big thumbs up. But with hindsight, the best 4 games we've had was under Ruud van Nistelrooy. Now, I'm not saying that Ruud van Nistelrooy was the answer, but I am saying right now is that we got this wrong, and we have to admit we got it wrong. And giving this guy more time is just gonna decimate the club. I mean, the club is in shit off the pitch and on the pitch. There's all the way through Manchester United, we're either having a bad time off the pitch or a bad time on the pitch. It's never been hand in hand. I think under Mourinho near the end, it got bad. It got bad off the pitch and on the pitch. The whole club was just sour. But that was fixable quite easily. Ratcliffe has made, a lot of mistakes. And I'm not buying into the fact that, he came in and now he's fixing what the Glazers had done. And there's no way a man that's a self-made billionaire walked into that and bought that club with his eyes closed. He knew what he was walking into. He knew it. He just sold us a love story and that he can't fulfill right now. But so a lot of the blame goes there. Unpopular decisions that he's made. And I get some of them you have to as a business, but he doesn't get off. He really doesn't. He really doesn't. And it's only getting worse. I just think that, we need to bite the bullet sooner rather than later with this guy. And if people are saying, well, what's the answer? Well, I don't run a football club, but I have eyes and I can see that this guy is not going to do us any good. He's just not. Ben had mentioned, that's why I was smiling. He had mentioned my number one choice for many, many years, Carlo Ancelotti. He's with Real Madrid, but you know what? Things come to an end, I would move heaven and earth to get Carlo Ancelotti. And I believe that he would get us in a much better position with this current squad than we are right now. And then we build on that. He's not a manager that sticks around for long. But here's the thing. If we start off next season the way we're finishing, we will get relegated. Yeah. Because there's no proof to say that we won't, but there's every evidence to show that we will. Because we're getting hammered every single week. And no one loves it more than Manchester, than rival supporters and commentators and clowns like Carragher, than Manchester United being down in the dumps. And once you get, and I've watched football for long enough to know that once you get stuck down there, you can't get out. You just can't. It's a hard thing to get out of a relegation battle. I don't believe we're in a relegation battle right now. I think we got enough points. And I think that the teams below us are so bad that they're not going to catch us. But imagine thinking that last summer when we start bringing in players, that we're going to be in a relegation battle. It's mind-blowing. So we could get relegated. If we keep this guy, we are in big, big trouble. And I hate to say that. And it's not reactionary. I'm looking at the evidence. We never had a manager bounce. Every club does. They bring Sam Allardyce in. They win the first 5 games. Everyone has that bounce in the beginning. We never even got that with this guy. And I know someone said earlier on, and it's been said a few times, we wanted to come in the summer. But we have no money. So what was he going to do in the summer? And the club knows that. We brought him in November. It's not as if we brought him in with 2 months to go. He's had, like I said, He's had 100 days on the training pitch with these players, roughly, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse. And I know I'm banging that drum a lot, but the inevitable is going to happen unless United can't afford to get rid of the guy. Mm. But we need to do this sooner rather than later because it's just embarrassing every week. And then to listen to him, he's such a spoofer in these press conferences. He's basically telling us what we want to know. He's trying to be our friend. Oh, we're terrible. We're embarrassing. We're this. Oh, we don't want to face the United fans. They're great. Dude, you're the one that controls all this. But and I know I was mentioned a few times as well in the comments here, is that he just refuses to change that system when it's glaringly obvious that that's the problem with these players. The system is like I said, I've always liked that system. But with these players, it's a massive, massive problem. It's like having two 5-foot strikers up front, and all you're doing is pitching in long balls. And the centre half just eating it up every week. You and I talked about this as well in the past. There must be players out there that come to Manchester United as the away team and leave Old Trafford and thinking, what the hell was that? What's happened to this club?
Yeah.
This was one of the easiest games we've had, and I can't remember who it was, but there was players earlier on the season that equated playing Manchester United. I'll try and find a comment to basically, Friday practice match. That's how easy it was.
Yeah.
And that's embarrassing. It really is. We're so easy to play against. So easy. So sorry for my little rant. But anyway, on that note, I want to thank everyone for joining in. And my apologies, I didn't get more comments up, but my add comments wasn't working. But we did try and incorporate a lot of the stuff that you guys were saying into the pod this week. And as always, we appreciate everyone listening in. And if you haven't subscribed, click all the various subscribe buttons that you can. The last thing I'll say on this is, be with what's happened, with the news that we got late last week, just be kind to people, except Amaron, you can give him abuse. No, just be kind to people. It's, we're all in this shit together. It's a messy world out there right now. So, but everyone be safe and hopefully things get better on the football side. But off the pitch, you can try and control your emotions as well. Like I don't. But yeah, thanks for joining, and look forward to a fantastic win next week against the manager that we gave a 28-year contract to, David Moyes. Thanks everyone, and thanks for listening in.